The Los Angeles Clippers are pretenders.
Yeah.
And it's not because of Russell Westbrook. On a
Okay.
current 5-game losing streak coming off the All-Star break, I've seen a lot of people pointing at Russ specifically, but the reality is Russ is not the issue. And he's not even one of the three biggest problems. This team has lost their identity following a end pre-All-Star break that seemed like they're starting to figure things out. BC, we're going to have to start with you. This team has fallen to the playing tournament of the Western Conference, the current A seed at 33 and 33, winners of just 3 games in their last 10. Nothing feels to be going right defensively as they are 1-4 this year without their starting center and Ivica Zubats. What the hell is going on?
Well, you kind of like you shot yourself in the foot with the statement you made because you said it's not Westbrook, but then you said they looked like they were having kind of some success before the All Star break. Yes, they were, John. They were, I believe, off the top of my head, 10-4 before the All Star break or before Westbrook joined them. I think they were 10-4. Since getting Westbrook, they're all 5. And
I
since
didn't know
Westbrook,
Westbrook was the only player they brought in.
time out. When since he's joined, 5 games, 23 turnovers. 23. Westbrook is, I think I forget he's been on. He's 0-7 in his last 7 games. Westbrook that he's played in, going back with the Lakers.
Here's an even better stat about Westbrook. His last 15 games as a starter have all been losses.
Thank you. That's the stat I was looking for, Justin. Yes, but again, it's and what's interesting, John, is you say now you're saying the Clippers are pretenders, Justin. Did he ever hint that the Clippers were pretenders before this? Before like a week ago? No, right? All the way through
I
the
did.
season. It's interesting that now he's bringing it up. Why now? Why 5 games into the Russell Westbrook experiment are you saying now they are pretenders when we didn't hear a peep out of you? When I was saying that they can win the championship, you didn't scoff or anything like that. You didn't say no, that there's no chance of that happening. But now, 5 games in to the Russell Westbrook experiment, the Clippers are pretenders. Well, thanks for pointing out the obvious, Captain Obvious. When you add Russell Westbrook, it demotes them. I said that when they signed him. Yes, it does. How can you make that argument? They're 0-5 with them. He's got 23 turnovers in 5 games, John. 5 games.
Last game they played, the Clippers had 7 turnovers. He totaled for 5 of them.
Yeah, he was also a plus 10 in that game with 27 points.
Oh my God.
Well, he was efficient from the field, but if you think about it, I mean, he's throwing in the turnovers there.
Few
It's a
and
one
far
point
between.
loss. I'm sure some of those turnovers counted to points on the other end.
Few
So
and far
it's a
between.
very
The game against Golden State, 3 for 12, 0 for 5 from 3. 4 turnovers, 8 points.
Let's talk about Russ specifically. The Clippers this year are second to last in paint scoring. And this team, the problem with the Clippers is not Russell Westbrook. The problem with the Clippers is what it's been the last 3.5 years. They don't get easy looks at the rim, and they're a team that relies on tougher shot making offensively. Kawhi Leonard is a killer. We know he's a killer when he's on the floor. Part of the issue is he hasn't played back to backs. He's missed almost half of the season. And defensively, Kawhi is not going to put in all of that effort he was putting in back 7 years ago when he was in his 20s. Defensively, the Clippers stink. Without Ivica Zubats, they don't know who they want to be. Is this the team that's going to go small the way they did in their Western Conference Finals run 2 years ago? Because they can't. They simply do not have the personnel. At the point of attack, their only good defender is Terrence Mann. And what I disagree with is Tyronn Lue benching Mann in favor of Westbrook. Because let's be honest, Russell Westbrook is a great backup point guard. He should not be starting. And Tyronn Lue starting him is a little bit ridiculous. But they need that skill set. They need his playmaking. They need his pace. They need his scoring at the rim. Now, you get what you paid for, Russ, right? There are times, as we saw in that Warriors game and versus the Kings, where if you play him in the fourth quarter, yeah, you're playing 4-on-5 offensively. But what he brings throughout a game and the injection of energy and scoring is something this team desperately needed. Beggars can't be choosers here. The Clippers starting point guard would have been Bones Highland if you're not going to go with Terrence Mann and Paul George playing those duties. And Bones is an even worse option currently. Russell Westbrook's issue, of course, is floor spacing and decision making, but those really only pop up in the second half, in tighter games, in the playoffs especially. I feel like playing 15 to 20 minutes a night, he will be a positive for this team. And saying that he is the issue when you brought in Mason Plumlee as well, who is not good, by the way. I could have told you that coming in. Mason Plumlee is trash. Every time he puts the ball on the floor, it's literally a hazard he's going to turn over. He can't defend. I mean, he's got a good connection with Russ. I have to say that those two players did a good job working together. But Mason Plumlee stinks. He should not be starting any game, and he's going to have to if Ivica Zubac continues the next time. He wasn't good in Charlotte. He hasn't been good in a couple of years. And I hate watching him play, so maybe I'm being a little bit too hard on him. Eric Gordon at 34 just does not look like the same type of player he was a couple of years ago. And we're now starting to see that in a much more competitive setting. So.
But, like, I mean, first off, Mason Plumlee just a game ago put up 12 and 20. There's not a lot of centers out there that can go get you 20 rebounds in a game.
A lot can.
I feel like you're just tossing 20 rebounds away like it means nothing, but I guess. But listen, Mason Plumlee is not going to be a major issue. Mason Plumlee was brought in to be the backup center for Zubac. If Zubac got into foul trouble or if he did miss time, and now he can step in. So I'm not worried about that. If Zubac misses times in the playoffs, okay, you can worry about it. But right now, nothing to worry about. You bring up Eric Gordon. Yes, okay. I didn't agree with that move either. He's not what he once was, and even when he was what he was very streaky. He had those big explosion games, but for the most part, he was missing a lot of his shots. He was a very volume shooter, streaky, hot and cold, very hot and cold. I don't think we're pretty much disagreeing a lot on these points, John. I feel like our disagreement is that Westbrook is an ingredient that you can't add to this already. We know what the Clippers' problems have been. Like, we know that they play a lot of ISO ball and they take the tough shots like you referred to. We know that they don't have the chemistry and the cohesiveness and the continuity because they don't play together. Paul George is missing time. Kawhi obviously coming off a torn ACL. You got all the other guys. Zubac is missing time now. Marcus Morris Sr. is missed time. We know that. So, but when they're coming off 10-4, Kawhi has played basically since I think January. He played basically all of January. He's played all of February. He's starting to play these games now. He's not playing back-to-backs, which is just a smart basketball business decision to do. Don't play back-to-backs. It's not smart. So they're getting the continuity. I think the 10-4 record, I think I'm right, before the All-Star break, was showing something. They were winning games. They were starting to get them things together. And I said, go get Fred VanVleet. But if you can't, which is, taking a shot, go get a Mike Conley then. Settle for a Mike Conley. That's fine. Because Mike Conley is much better than Russell Westbrook. Like, Mike Conley isn't a, Fred VanVleet, but at least he's a veteran point guard who's not going to turn the ball over at an insane rate. He can make three-pointers. Westbrook can't even – I mean, come on now. We all saw Draymond literally –
I was going to mention that. That was so embarrassing. I honestly felt bad for us. That was embarrassing. In basketball, you're taught to take the open shot. The guy picked up his dribble.
Yeah, but you can't for Westbrook. You can't shoot those because you're not a good three. He's shooting 29% from three. Like I've said, it's just a terrible fit, and you can't add that situation, the Russell Westbrook situation, to an already messy situation that's just starting to kind of get its legs under them. They're starting to crawl. You got to crawl before you walk, and that's what the Clippers were doing, and that's good. They had a month left to get into the playoffs to really start, running. Now you add Westbrook to that situation, and it's just not gonna. It looks even worse now. I agree with you though. I don't like the ISO situation ball. That's why I was begging for a point guard to get in there for them.
Yeah.
Or another guy who can because if you're going to play ISO ball, you need more than just a you shouldn't need more than just Paul George and Kawhi, but you need another guy who's going to spell for them. And Norman Powell is streaky, so if you're going to have that streaky guy, Fred VanVleet, if you got the space for it and you can get it, go get it. But they needed that veteran point guard presence, is what I'm saying, to really calm everything down, get everybody into their sets, call the plays, and run a more like I always love watching the Warriors or the Spurs of 10 years ago play. I love that style of basketball, the movement, the off-ball movement, the screens, the ball movement. It's beautiful basketball to watch. I think anybody who enjoys the game of basketball can love that style of play. And we don't see that. We're obviously not going to see that with the Clippers, even though Kawhi does come from that tree. He is more of a ISO ball, but yeah. So I don't know where we're differing, John. I guess they are pretenders at this point. I don't see them going anywhere with Russell Westbrook. I think I made that very clear when they signed him. So yeah.
I'm not too remiss on just canceling the Clippers though, for the simple fact that in the playoffs you're not playing any back-to-backs. Kawhi is going to be available, and him taking the timeout now, hopefully they get themselves out of the 8th seed and they get themselves a shoe-in spot for the playoffs, maybe a 6th seed at this point. I mean, the West is open for anybody, so I'm not gonna rule out the Clippers just yet. I have too much respect for Kawhi and PG. PG is so self-aware and knows his game more than anybody that you just got to give him respect. And you could only hope that maybe, I mean, I can't even say he will, but you just could only cross your fingers and say Russ is going to positively impact this team come April and May.
Don't you guys think Kawhi's a pretty big part of the Clippers' problems, though? Don't you feel like they lack
Or what, not playing?
Are you saying what are they lacking?
A vocal leader.
So you're blaming Kawhi for not being the vocal leader? You think that's a problem?
One of the Clippers' biggest issues is not just that they've regressed defensively. They have a lot of really slow wings that can't guard in space, but they're not a connected team. They don't communicate. And for a team that wants to play smaller in the playoffs with these 6'7" to 6'9" wings, you need to be connected. And there's just a lack of cohesion here, not just defensively, but in the fourth quarter, we've seen the hierarchy of which star is going to take over. That's been off whack over the last couple of weeks.
But you said that you asked us isn't Kawhi? Would you say Kawhi is one of the main problems? So I'm trying to pinpoint what you mean by that. You're talking. So you said vocal leader. Is that what you have a problem with Kawhi not being a vocal enough leader?
Also, teammates don't know when Kawhi's going to play too. That's another concern with the organization over the last 2 years.
Justin, did I just ask him a direct question? This man is a politician with it. Is he not a politician with it? I asked him a direct question, and he answered a completely different question.
John never answers the question.
Is your problem with Kawhi Leonard that he is not a vocal enough leader? It's yes
partially.
Partially. What's the other problem with? So the other problem is he doesn't play enough. All right. So let's get down to it. Right. Doesn't play enough. John, he's coming off a torn ACL. You were the one saying to me when I was going off on Kevin Durant for gassing out. Okay? You were coming at me and saying the body can't handle that. So you can't have it both ways. Now you're blaming Kawhi Leonard, who's coming off a torn ACL. John, which one is worse, torn ACL or a little tired? I think we all know the answer to that question. So you can't come and blame Kawhi now for missing time. Both of those major injuries he has had were freak accidents that could happen to anybody. They weren't like, he was just running non-contact, boom. The Zubac injury and not Zubac. Oh, I'm sorry. Zaza Pachulia, whatever his name is. And the Joe Ingles one, right? Joe Ingles when they bumped right into his thigh or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
So what? So what do you expect from Kawhi for this season? Like he's played basically all of January. He's played all of February. He played a majority of December, I'm pretty sure. So what do you
let's
He's
be
just
clear.
missing the back-to-backs.
I don't have a problem with Kawhi missing back-to-backs with a torn ACL. I have a problem with Kawhi's lack of leadership. When you look at San Antonio,
you don't.
Some people lead by example. It's not leading. It always happens to be the loudest guy in the room.
Justin, he's not leading by example. This Clippers team lacks a
He's
leader.
not on the
They
floor
don't
right now, but
have
when he is on the floor,
connectivity.
does he produce?
Yeah, but they're losing games because they're not playing as a team. Who is that
Who's
fall
the
on?
head coach then?
Tyronn Lue, and I'm going to quote Tyronn in a second, believe me. The problem with the Clippers is that when Kawhi's won championships, he's had a established leadership structure. And San Antonio, Greg Popovich, Tim Duncan, and then veterans like Patty Mills that had been there for years. In Toronto, he goes and he has Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet. Two guards that are almost tailor-made to play off of Kawhi. Elite defenders in the guard spot.
A team that was called the Baby Dinosaurs and was owned by LeBron for years.
So LeBron leaves the conference, and that Toronto team keeps the role players in Lowry and VanVleet, who both develop, and they kind of feel like a glove off of Kawhi.
And in that season, give Kawhi any of that credit.
When they won 58 games, Kawhi missed 42. I think it was 24 of them, not 42, but he sat out 20 plus. And they were, I think, an 18-win team that only 6 losses without him because Pascal Siakam developed. And that team had an identity off of Kawhi, right? They had a high-level coach, Nick Nurse, who had been in the organization the last couple of years. The Raptors had the right leadership structure in place with Kyle Lowry so that they could welcome Kawhi in. When the Clippers acquired Kawhi with Doc Rivers, probably one of the biggest choke artists we've ever seen in the postseason, they didn't have that stable leadership structure that has a high enough ceiling. They had a high floor with Lou Will and Montrezl Harrell, sure, but in the playoff crucible, that organization never actually had that foundation firm enough to actually maximize Kawhi Leonard and have the necessary leadership in place to make sure he could lead you as the best player to a championship in LA.
So I don't see how any of this is Kawhi's fault.
That's what I'm saying. But all you're explaining is stuff. Unless you're just flat out saying Kawhi Leonard, you need to be a vocal leader. All your gripes need to be with the front office or the head coach, not Kawhi, because we know what Kawhi is. You brought Kawhi in knowing what Kawhi was. He is not a vocal guy. He leads by his play. And to remind you, basically played all of December. All right. Played all of January, balled out in freaking January, 54% from the field, 45% from 3-point line, 91% from 92% from the free throw line, 28 points, 2 steals a game. He played majority of February. It was a more shorter month. He's playing these games now. Like, so your gripes and problems are not with Kawhi. I don't know what your like. Paul George should step up more. I don't like Paul George basically saying he can't be a number one guy. I don't like that. You can think that all you want. Don't say it out loud to the public. I don't like that.
You know what I do find very interesting? We're talking about Kawhi with the back-to-backs, and I don't know if it was Paul George talking on JJ Redick's podcast, but him mentioning how back when he was playing in Indiana, at least in that time in the NBA, it was practice hard, go to play your game. Practice hard, play your game. Practice hard, play your game. And then occasionally you'll have the day off. And he said he felt that was more beneficial for his body. And now all this load management is making basketball players weaker. That's just, just his opinion when he has a teammate that does that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.